It's the Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling Podcast. My name is Josh, and with me, as always, one of a kind. Josh, how you doing?
On this day, Alter Bridge sings a song. Edge is back on TV. On this day. On this day. Edge is back.
Edge is back.
Edge is back. Edge returns. Here's the thing. I knew, and we actually called this out. No, we didn't. I'm sorry. We didn't call this out for the Royal Rumble, but we did note, like, hey, if he's doing bumps like he did back, what was it, SummerSlam? If he did a spear in the ring,
right,
he was cleared to wrestle. So I knew at some point we could see him back in the ring. So it was great, though, to see at the Royal Rumble. Overall, hey, what was your thought of the Royal Rumble overall?
The event itself was actually pretty okay, and the match itself was really pretty good.
Story of two Royal Rumbles, really.
Yeah.
You know?
There was Lesnar's Rumble and then everybody else's Rumble.
Which I think they made the right call with Lesnar's portion of the Rumble. I wish Kofi Kingston wasn't part of that, but anyway, what were your thoughts?
I was really worried for a minute there. They had me really going.
Got to go all the way through.
The way it was going through, I was like, oh my God, are they going to do this? Are they just going to waste an entire Royal Rumble on just Brock Lesnar? And I said, they're going to fucking do this, aren't they? Yeah. I said if they're going to do it for anybody, they would do it for Brock Lesnar. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the Brock Lesnar show. And I was starting to get really, really mad. But no, they came to their senses. What did he eliminate? Like 10 guys?
Yeah, I think more than that. Well, no, getting back to your point, they trolled us, and it was a great piece of storytelling. Mm-hmm. Again, as I mentioned, I wish Kofi Kingston wasn't part of that. It was the right call, and it put Drew McIntyre over. But I kind of asked this question of like, why not have Brock Lesnar actually have wrestled a match outside of the Royal Rumble, actually like defend the title? And even then, like, did Lesnar actually need that to put Drew McIntyre over? I think just Drew McIntyre winning the Royal Rumble does it, but it does clearly set it up for an excellent WrestleMania match for the Universal title. That is for sure. That's coming out of that. So that's true. So yeah, job well done there from WWE. Like Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar is going to be it, and
that is good.
Yeah,
I feel like for people like you and me, you didn't have to build anything up with Drew McIntyre. Like we knew, but I feel like for the average casual fan, they needed to see something concrete right then and there to understand why Drew McIntyre should have won the match.
Right. Well, it was interesting too because in a way, it was actually Ricochet that won the Royal Rumble. If it wasn't Ricochet's low blow, which that's some great storytelling, to Brock Lesnar, it caught him off guard, and then we had the Claymore kick right after that. So it's one of those things where, but then again, I guess the story was Drew McIntyre through Ricochet, so I guess both of them had something to do with it. Like, no, again, I thought it was a really good piece of storytelling. I too was worried. I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to see this? And again, it was one of those where I think Brock Lesnar's been put over enough, and I didn't want to see this happen. But they knew that. They knew that's what fans would be thinking, and they trolled us. And again, it was a great piece of storytelling. So, no, I really enjoyed that. What do you think about Roman Reigns, King Corbin, which basically we had the Falls Count Anywhere match, and then that sort of went to SmackDown into the Loser 8 dog food match. I would assume at this point, the storyline is over.
It seems like it, thankfully, right?
Well, because I anticipate Roman Reigns, as far as heading to WrestleMania to take on the Fiend, although I think we'll see with Elimination Chamber, or at this point, I don't know, Super Showdown, we might actually see something there in terms of, they're making a lot of big matches. We might, just to draw attention, they may have number one contender WrestleMania matches there. So, but yeah, no. So, again, it's like, where do we go from here? I would assume there's going to be an Elimination Chamber match of some sort. King Corbin will be involved. Roman Reigns will be involved. We'll probably see Bobby Roode and Ziggler involved. Hopefully we see Mustafa Ali involved somehow. Hopefully we see Kofi Kingston involved somehow. But ultimately, I think it's going to lead to Roman Reigns taking on The Fiend at WrestleMania. And I think that's where we're going to see The Fiend drop the title. The Fiend's going to lose this undefeated streak, which, again, there was the referee stoppage with Seth Rollins, but outside of that, as far as an actual pinfall submission, we haven't seen that yet. So again, I think Roman Reigns could take the whole thing at WrestleMania 36, but who knows? Who knows? A lot could happen. But I am kind of excited for Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar. Although let me ask you this: I actually think Brock Lesnar is gonna retain over Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania. And I think maybe that SummerSlam, Drew McIntyre would then be ripe and ready to be the world champion. Typically, people going for their first shot, you didn't want to give it to him right away because you want him to earn it. Like that's why it was so great to see Shawn Michaels win the world title finally. Is he had these opportunities. He lost to Bret Hart at one point for a world championship match before, as far as a match at WrestleMania. So you have those where it's like you want to see that struggle, and when they finally get it, it's like, yes, it's so much better storytelling. It's so it gets your worker over more and all that. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But other than that, what else did you think of Royal Rumble?
Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend. Speaking of The Fiend, right?
Yeah.
Am I the only one who just doesn't give a shit about strap matches? Like, you hear like a strap match. It's like whoop-de-doo. I don't know. But don't get me wrong. The match itself was terrific because those guys can make anything work.
Yeah.
I don't know, strap match. But the match itself. How about that match? That was great.
Yeah. No, you're right. It was a good match, and yeah, I thought the same thing. A strap match. I almost felt like they kind of fed this to the fans, saying like, yeah, the thing about. With The Fiend, he's always trying to get away. It's like, no, what? He's not. He's always like coming out of nowhere and like attacking people. But I guess you could make that argument he's trying to get away. But to me, I felt like it was fed. So that was the whole idea behind the strap match, is that he couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
But in that case, why not make it a steel cage match?
Exactly.
Right. If you don't want him to go anywhere.
That,
right. Exactly. I think that's where I think we'll see that go. But at some point, maybe, I don't know, because I think we're going to switch gears and see kind of Roman Reigns, The Fiend. But who knows? We may not be done with Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin yet.
Yeah, what's up with that? Can we just put an end to that already?
Well, here's the thing. Like, at this point, do you think Baron Corbin's going to come back next week and not say anything about Roman Reigns? Like, the character-wise, and I'm kind of kayfabing this, but my whole point is like his character would never do, especially as the king. He wouldn't stand for this. He'll come back even bigger and better. So it's almost like they could even extend this some more.
They probably will. They probably shouldn't, if you ask me. I feel like after what happened on SmackDown with the dog food incident on Corbin, you could say he wants to lay low, and he's so embarrassed. He's so he can't show his face. That would be an interesting thing. Like Baron Corbin gets a crisis of conscience storyline after this, and he causes him to change and grow and go back to his old. I want the old Corbin back, so I'm trying to think how can we do that?
Well, we've mentioned this before. That's the problem with Baron Corbin's character, is that he's too hokey, and he's got this whole kind of pompous attitude. Where I want to see the old end of days Baron Corbin. I think they could do that and make him as far as that badass he really is. The guy is a hell of an athlete. And he's a hell of a worker. And I think they could be doing better than this caricature of this pompous, basically like high school kind of
jock.
prank, jock, type situation. Yeah, exactly. So, I think that, at this point, why not? They could actually extend this out to WrestleMania. That might clear the path up. You have Daniel Bryan involved in an Elimination Chamber match. Maybe he wins somehow. And then you have the you have another Yes-Omania taking on The Fiend.
Oh, hey.
Why not have Daniel Bryan get the title? That's another way to kind of look at it. And so this whole time we're kind of thinking Roman Reigns, but they might be better off going with more of a Daniel Bryan route. I don't know that Roman Reigns is fully over again with the crowd. I think I've said this before, he's a terrific worker. Needs some work on the mic, but I think he's great in the ring. I love Roman Reigns as a wrestler. But again, I think fans are tired of having someone shoved down our throats. And so you kind of get that negative reaction, and then it's again, we know the whole story. But
that's the thing, is WWE starting to realize that? Are they going to back off on Roman Reigns? They did for a while, but I feel like Vince is just waiting to try pushing it again. And like you said, if they lead up to The Fiend versus Roman Reigns, it's almost like a Dungeon of Doom type thing. You get this over-the-top supervillain to make whoever it is look really good. So when he beats the odds, everybody, all the kids and everybody can latch on to that very easily. So are they just waiting, or are they? I'd love to see Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend. Of course, like that. If you ask me, that's going to be the more compelling. So far, of all the clashes of whoever he's clashed with, The Fiend, Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend is the most compelling right now. So I want to stick with that, but I feel like Vince is just waiting to play his Roman Reigns card. Just Roman Reigns wins, LOL.
Well, there's other options too. You could really again rework your way to Roman Reigns and the Usos, have them again taking on Robert Roode, Dolph Ziggler, and Baron Corbin. They could make that a 6-man tag where it's falls count anywhere. They could make that a WrestleMania match, and you just took care of six workers, and you got them a WrestleMania spot, and they could have some great spots within that match. So they could, at this point, they've invested so much time. And we're only, a month and a half away from WrestleMania. Why not carry it out even further? And again, go with maybe a Daniel Bryan versus The Fiend. But hey, we'll see. Right now at this point, I don't know if we'll see The Undertaker again at WrestleMania. I think last year was sort of the pulse to let fans know that we're not going to see The Undertaker every year. And I'm bummed, of course. The Undertaker is my favorite wrestler of all time.
Right.
Of all time. I've always been a fan of him. From the moment I saw him, I was like, wow, I was just tranquilized. This guy's awesome. And he had that next level where I was like, there's something different about this guy. I really like him.
Right.
So I'm kind of bummed myself, but again, you get older and you can't keep wrestling until you're 90 years old, so I get it,
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that. The guy needs his rest and everything. We don't need The Undertaker necessarily every year nowadays, but are they just going to wait too long? That's the thing. Like, the character in Mark Calloway's wrestling career does need to be put to rest at some point. Fairly soon, I would argue. Based on everything we've seen and the way we've seen his performances and stuff, I mean, the guy's just, it's time. It's getting to be time. And I feel like if they keep trying to stretch this out, the man himself, he's just getting older. Like, are they just waiting too long?
He can still work, though. He can still work. That's the thing. And he still wants to work, I think, on a very limited basis. But my hope is that they at least understand that having an Undertaker appearance somehow at WrestleMania is important. Although I get from WWE's standpoint is that if people see the Undertaker at WrestleMania and he didn't wrestle, they'd be like, "What? Boo! Yeah. I wanted to see him wrestle." You know, so there's sort of that thing to contend with. But yeah, I think there's always a different way they can use it. Whether they throw his name on some type of match that happens every WrestleMania or something, some type of Undertaker Battle Royal special, which they already have the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. But again, they could make some type of
bring back the Buried Alive match.
A Buried Alive match,
make that special again.
Well, exactly. I think though it's having that type of match, like every WrestleMania having a Buried Alive match.
No, you don't do it every one though.
Yeah, just every once in a while.
Every once in a while.
Okay.
Bring it back. Make it special.
Yeah, exactly. So, but, that's the thing. So, we'll see. I mean, that's the thing. I've always had a good time watching WrestleMania. I always walk away enjoying something about it. Yeah, I'll gripe and moan about, well, I should have done this, and Vince is in the system, and But at the end of the day, you have to understand the production that goes into a show like WrestleMania, and think of all the wrestlers we get to see, the 8 hours of wrestling. And this really is the sort of Super Bowl for wrestling. Obviously there's Wrestle Kingdom and whatnot, but generally speaking, in terms of the masses, as far as people having access, more people have access to WrestleMania than Wrestle Kingdom. So I'm not saying anything about the wrestling, but again, this is, I think, more of a mega main event.
This is the big show. Yeah,
it's the show, right? So, and I think everyone could say their dream to be in the main event at WrestleMania, like where all eyes in the wrestling universe. Not just industry, but wrestling universe. And not just WWE, but we're talking if you're wrestling in the indies, if you're wrestling in some small town, or if you're at the performance center, or if you're even just thinking about pro wrestling, that night you'll be watching WrestleMania, or at least trying to hear about what happened.
Yes.
There's nights I had to work WrestleMania, and I was like, hey, trying to check on my phone to see what's going on and all that. So all eyes are on you. And guess what? Some people don't even have to watch WrestleMania. They'll get the ESPN alert saying that, Becky Lynch just retained over Shayna Baszler.
Yeah. They're still involved somehow. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Speaking of, do you think we'll see with that? Do you think we'll see Shayna Baszler in the man WrestleMania?
I still think it's too early for Shayna Baszler to get it to that point. So, unless it's a three-way with Charlotte, which it quite possibly could be, being the winner of the Women's Royal Rumble. And they just like to kind of put Charlotte into things over and over and over again. Not that she's not deserving to be involved in the main event, but it's always like you have this excellent superstar, but you never have her. You don't always have her involved in the storylines naturally.
Well, some are asking actually. She might actually try to select Rhea Ripley to put her belt on the line. So we could also see something like that. But I don't know. I would love to see a Naomi Bailey. That's why I'm kind of holding out. Like, I really want to see Naomi get the title again.
There you go.
And I think have that a really awesome WrestleMania moment. And that'll be a great match. Naomi versus Bailey.
I could see that.
We're talking, that'll be a pound for pound great wrestling match.
Right.
I don't think it'll be huge. Well, I shouldn't say this. I was going to say it won't be that much of a spectacle, but then I'm thinking Naomi's entrance at WrestleMania. Oh yeah, that's going to be a big spectacle. So that's going to be glow all over. But and I've always been a fan of actually, I guess both. I actually really like Bailey a lot more now that she's heel.
Yes.
No, I've always been a huge fan of Naomi. Naomi. So that's where I hope they kind of go with that. Kind of jumping back to the Royal Rumble, Lacey Evans and Bayley, I don't know. For me, maybe it's just we need some more time. There's some jitters, but Lacey Evans to me is just not doing it as the next face of SmackDown, to be honest. I enjoy Lacey Evans, but she's just, I think the biggest problem is she's not exactly connecting with all the fans. I think it feels
it's
forced.
just her gimmick, yeah.
The gimmick is good. I think she plays the part well. I just think she's not connecting with the fans. She's trying to kind of be this, like, sort of, in a way, a people's champion, but the people aren't relating to her. And again, I mean, she's an extraordinary person. She's got a hell of a background, and, definitely thank her for her service. She's one heck of an athlete, and she's one of those people that she's a grinder. She's like a Baron Corbin. She always shows up. She's always ready. I just don't think she's connecting with the crowd, and that's maybe not necessarily her fault. It might just be as far as creative, and people feel like it's force, but again, I don't think she's connecting like maybe WWE wants the fans to.
I think she could just be a little bit of a slow burner, because that's how I felt about her when she first debuted as a heel. I was like, it just wasn't doing it for me.
Well, she would just walk out. She wasn't doing anything physical.
Yeah.
And then she started doing the women's right, and it was like, okay, great.
Even then, still, I was still like, I'm still slow to warm up. I've warmed up now, but I think it just might take people more time to get into the groove with her. I think her gimmick is in such a way where it can get over to more mass appeal, but I think it's going to take more time to establish it and really define who she is. Now that she's not a heel, her gimmicks, the way they portray it, sometimes it's a little incongruent, I guess I'd say. And
that's the problem, is there was never a shift. It was just what happened was like, her daughter got made fun of, and she's like, woke up the next morning, well, you know what, I'm a face now. I'm not a heel anymore. Yeah. My daughter got made fun of. I'm now a face.
Right.
And it was like, whoa. Like, what I kind of wanted to see was maybe her like standing up and still being her sassy Southern belle, but then saying, there's something we can all agree on, and that's treatment of children. And what you did is really wrong.
Right.
And then make that like, okay, great, she has a value. So it's just at this point a heel with a value. And then she keeps putting on her good matches. And then fans are like, okay, let's go. I got you. But there was just this light switch. And it was like suddenly it was heel to face. And it's just fans like, I guess because of now she's on SmackDown, now she's a face.
Right. Well, what happened was you didn't get that clear connection of what happened to the daughter, how it affected her specifically.
Yes.
It's one thing if like the wrestler gets beaten down or humiliated, it's them specifically. But by having it an outside entity, you need to show that connection of how it affected them. And you never got that. So yeah, like you said, it was like that light switch, and it just doesn't work that way. It needs to grow on the fans.
And you're right, because this is something WWE is usually good, and I've mentioned this before, this is something WWE is really good at, squeezing as much juice out of that orange as possible, and something that I thought AEW wasn't doing at first, and I think they've gotten better now. You look at the Cody Rhodes, MJF storyline, and they're slowing that down, really, really getting as much energy out of that as possible. And you're right, they didn't do it with this one. It was just boom, it was done. But yeah, I don't know. I really would like to see a Naomi Bayley match, but I think to that point, Lacey Evans has been put over enough. They want to showcase her. Yeah. I think for the SmackDown, as far as women's championship, it will be a triple threat. I think that'll actually be a triple threat. I think we'll see Charlotte.
Okay.
I think we'll see Charlotte and Rhea Ripley for the NXT title, and I think we'll see the man Baszler, but if anything, honestly, I would rather see the man versus Ronda Rousey. I think there's more money in that, in an actual rematch. I think people want to see that. Because at this point, and Corey Graves mentioned this on his podcast, the fans are sort of getting over Becky Lynch. In a way, it's kind of like, everyone's sort of bored with her because she's sort of beaten everyone in the locker room. There's no one really left. And she did beat Ronda Rousey at last year's WrestleMania, albeit a bit tainted. It was kind of a sloppy pinfall.
Sure.
Which that's no... as far as no fault to Becky, that's how she was directed to do it. But nonetheless, it got her the win. But still, it was kind of one of those tainted, like, you squeaked by.
A little bit.
You didn't really get that juicy victory over Ronda Rousey and needed. So that's where I think fans would really like to see kind of a Ronda Rousey, Becky Lynch main event. And you could actually make that the main event again. That would be, to me, a Starrcade style.
But you don't think it's too late to reintroduce Ronda Rousey? I think a lot of folks might think that the best time to have brought Ronda Rousey back would have been the Royal Rumble.
I think it would have been the most expected time. Yeah. And again, I called it as well too. I thought she might come back.
Well,
but
I did too, yeah.
No, they could certainly insert her. I mean, there's lots of time. There's basically 2 months before WrestleMania. If you think about it, they could definitely introduce her at any point. But I think the thing about that, though, is like, I know from a personal standpoint, her and her husband, Travis, they are working on as far as building a family out. And, so I don't know if she's ready to jump back in the wrestling ring. I think I saw some reality show where she was on kind of like a couples therapy thing. So I think she's really spending a lot of time and focusing on family, which is always important. You should always focus on your family first and foremost. So I think kudos to them. So I'm wondering if, all this time they're focusing on the family, if she would have time to slide in and do a main event, unless you just coming in to job to Becky Lynch at WrestleMania. I know. The thing about it is Ronda Rousey, when she shows up. She was a Raw Women's Champion. She showed up for a year, about every other week. And I think actually about every week, I think.
She was very present. I'll give her that.
She defended the title all the time. And so she cleared out the locker room herself. So anyway, I'd like to see that. Maybe the better bet would be to have for Shayna Baszler and the man, and then have Ronda Rousey as a special guest.
So you think Shayna Baszler is ready for that limelight?
I don't know that she's ready, but they're sure as hell going to put her in the position to do so.
Okay.
And I think that because she is one of the 4 horsewomen with Ronda Rousey, and in the UFC, she's been around long enough. Wrestling fans respect her. She's got a good look. People think, the man might actually lose. I could kind of see that sort of losing to Shayna Baszler. Sure. And you got the connection of, as far as Ronda Rousey with Becky Lynch, you got the connection of Ronda Rousey with Shayna Baszler, and then you got 2 months to kind of build a program. Have again throw in Ronda Rousey as a special guest referee, and you got yourself quite the main event. And I think that you could have Ronda Rousey get physical. This way, she can show up. A couple of those weeks, she can still obviously be spending time with family, and she won't lose anything. She's the special guest referee. She's not going to get pinned or anything, so she'll keep everything intact, and it's going to put some butts in seats. So personally, that's the way I would go with that. But I do think that Shayna Baszler, in this exact moment, no, but I know the WWE machine can get her over, and she's already over with the wrestling fans.
Yeah.
And so I think they just need that marketing, the machine to get behind her on the marketing, and she'll be fine.
Give her that push.
Throw in Ronda Rousey. You've got an historical connection. They'll use some UFC footage. People are like, whoa, dude.
Oh, there
boom.
you go.
They'll be set and be perfect. But we'll see. We'll see what's going on with that. But anyway, Edge. We'll probably see Edge, Randy Orton, WrestleMania, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Unless they could build a couple more programs in there. But I actually knew that was going to happen. I knew that when Randy Orton came out, I'm like, here we go. And I knew they're going to build it up. And bam. I just knew it. I knew he was going to go fall out because first of all, Randy Orton's a lot better heel. There's a hell of a story here between Edge and Randy Orton that never really got finished. There was, rated RKO, and it really never kind of played. It sort of dissolved, And it was a faction that was contending with DX at the time. So I think it's nice to tuck these things away. So I think there's all sorts of ways they can go with this. Plus, you got 2 awesome workers. Plus, you get Edge again in a wrestling ring.
Yeah, man. Oh, the possibilities here. That's the thing. That's where I'm like, don't fuck this up, WWE.
I thought I saw his last match several years ago at WrestleMania. I took my wife to her first WrestleMania. We saw Alberto Del Rio taking on Edge, and didn't realize that at that time was going to be his last match because it was the following night. After he won, gave up the title and had the speech, and it was like, oh my god, that was the last match ever. And I was just like, no. Like, I've always been a huge Edge fan. We're going back to Brood and whatnot. I can't say that when I saw him in Brood, I knew he'd be as big as he is now.
Oh, yeah, nobody knew. Yeah.
But I always enjoyed him as a worker. And I actually, I remember watching the Brood and being like, the 2 guys that are hanging out with Gangrel, they're like a lot better workers. And I hate to say it because Gangrel is really cool. And I still do think Gangrel's cool. And actually, he's got a hell of a wrestling school, pumps a lot of people out of that. So he knows his stuff. I just think it was one of those where Edge and Christian were a bit younger. They had a new kind of view on as far as the way of wrestling.
That new wave,
Yeah. So I think it was maybe one of those things. But yeah, it was, man, when Edge came out, I was like, again, I knew it was going to happen at some point. I thought it might be like a super showdown or something, but I was glad it happened at the Royal Rumble. That was awesome. What else is going on? Revival. Are they staying? Should I stay or should I go? Oh, that was stupid. We might need to cut that out. Actually, I don't know. Do you like it? Hit us up in the hot box. Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling at gmail.com. We're going to keep it in there. Let us know if you like it. Hot box. Josh and Josh Talk Wrestling at gmail.com. Yeah. The Revival. What's going on? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, a little bit of background. Their contracts expire in April. Possibility of a 10-week extension for Dash Wilder due to the time he had off while he was injured. And apparently they had asked to be let go, I think, in January. They even turned down, I think, like a $500,000 contract.
Yeah.
So like they should just go. I mean, they seem to want to go. I mean, we're talking January here. Like if as recently as just January they wanted to go, just get the fuck out of here. Like don't worry about what the fans are saying.
Right.
You know, Scott Dawson was on Twitter complaining, saying make up your mind. No, just go, guys. Go to AEW or something.
Yeah.
Like
right.
like they would be a perfect fit for that. Can you imagine them rolling in? Whether they join the Elite or the Nightmare Family or the Inner Circle, it doesn't matter. Like they'll shine no matter what, or they'll just do their own thing. It's the possibilities are endless. So just get out of there, guys.
I would say if anything, if they went to AEW, they need to do their own thing and keep building out the tag team division and really build it around them. They swear they can be the quarterback. I would give them the title. Have them hold it for a whole damn year.
Yeah.
And let's see. And then we'll come back and look at the ratings, and then we'll see what you guys are worth. And I think that, with some right booking, because they are a terrific tag team. They're an awesome tag team. So I think if anything, they would go to AEW, do their own thing, build out the tag team division. But I'm asking the question of why not go into NWA? I think they'd be perfect as far as an NWA power. They're traditional wrestlers, and I could see that. But again, it gets where the money is. I don't know. Like, there's some money in NWA. There's some money in AEW. There's some money in WWE. And it also gets to the point of when you, like John Moxley, when you have enough money, you just want to do some good wrestling matches.
Sure.
I don't know if Revival's there yet. I don't know if they have those bank accounts like Moxley and Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns where they can sit on their ass and watch cable for the rest of their life and not do anything.
That's fair to say. I feel like, they'd be great on NWA, but I feel like they just deserve a bigger audience. Like, you know what I mean? They warrant a bigger stage. Well, I mean, if they don't want it, that's one thing, but I feel like when you're good, don't deprive, the world of your talent so much. You know what I mean? Like in AEW, they would be able to shine brighter than they ever did in WWE, I feel.
Yeah.
And still reach a very large audience that's at least comparable to NXT.
Yeah.
Right now, you know what I mean? And possibly growing. We'll see. I feel like that'd be a good compromise if I was them, So guys, if you're listening, this is just me saying,
Well, it would help out AEW a lot to see that quick turn for one. And then, on top of that, like, here's the thing. I'm guessing if they went to AEW and said, listen, we want to be your guys.
Yeah.
Give us a tag belts for a year or something. If that's what it takes to sign them, and AEW really needs that loud pop, that sort of traffic where people like, oh my gosh, some people are going from this is a big tag team that just left WWE is going to AEW. That creates controversy, and that creates cash, and that creates marketing, and so on and so forth. It gets you more aware.
Oh yeah,
and it gets more viewers, which gets more sponsors, and it makes you more successful. Blah blah blah.
Oh,
so that's the thing. It's like, I mean, they just got to be ready for them. Maybe they bring them over as faces.
Oh, hey.
Build them around, give them the tag belts, make them faces, and say, all right, you go build us a tag team division because we don't have one right now.
What if that becomes like the one of the main cornerstones of AEW is the differentiator, rather, I guess I'd say, is that they're strong on the tag where
that's what WCW was the longest time.
WWE has kind of faltered. Yeah, I mean that'd be great.
Yeah,
I'm sure that they've thought about this. I'm sure they've thought about all these things and gotten offers possibly from other people.
Yeah,
there's probably some kind of generalized offer sitting on the table for AEW right now.
Yeah.
So here's hoping. Yeah. Just get the hell out of there, guys. If you're not happy, just go,
Well, and what was interesting, too, is Edge had kind of used AEW to sort of leverage a deal.
Yeah.
And I guess apparently had the same deal. It's just probably, I thought he was thinking long term, it might be better to go with WWE and AEW right now.
Right.
With everything considered, with his wife and what she's doing there and all that. So I think he kind of thought it through. But AEW is going to offer Edge $3 million.
Wow.
So per year. So that would have been something huge. And that's the deal he has with WWE is $3 million per year for 3 years, paid up in front as long as he wrestles 3 matches each year.
Okay.
So,
wow. Hey.
Yeah. But he's scheduled for a lot more matches, but that's just some of the brief, that's just in case he got injured or something,
Sure.
he still has to do something. But I mean, it's a hell of a deal. But like, just think if AEW is able to pluck Edge, Revival, that's the thing. It's like there's a lot of talent out there. But the other thing too, it's not about negotiating too. It's about getting the talent. So it's about getting the talent, but then it's also about what do you do with them.
Yeah.
And so you've got to figure that out as well too. But speaking of talent, WWE lost a few members of their executive talent, sent to seem shockwaves, and they lost a bunch of money. How much money did they lose in the stock or something? Like, it was a bunch.
It was like $1 billion worth of stock.
Well, Barrios was the CFO, and then what was the name of the other executive? I forgot.
It was Michelle Wilson.
That's right, Michelle Wilson. And so it was sort of what I think where we initially heard they left, but then it sounds like that WB had let them go. So it sounds like WB actually has a plan, and I'm assuming they expected this to happen. I mean, I've worked for Fortune 500 companies that, as far as they got stock and whatnot, and a major player leaves, and you do see the stock drop a lot. So this is not something that is unheard of. Definitely hurt them, but my assumption is that Vince knew letting go of your CFO, that's going to cause some shockwaves.
Yeah.
And it sounds like they had an optimization plan in place. So I don't know. It's interesting because, Vince's official stance was, well, we're going a different direction, trying to figure out what direction they'd actually go. My assumption is probably from WrestleMania 30. This dates back to WrestleMania 30, where they lost a lot of money on concessions. It was a big deal for after WrestleMania 30. A lot of money was lost after concessions. There's just a lot of money that changed hands, and let's just say WB didn't get all the money that they were supposed to. So, and that's the thing from CFO down. Your job as CFO is to hold that company's wallet with your cold, dead hands.
Yeah.
And not let any money be spent. And if it is, it better be something real good. So, I think it's probably one of those falling outs there. But, both these executives have been around for like 12 years. And so it is kind of a big deal that Vince sort of just let them go. Obviously, it sounds like he had a plan in place with other shareholders. So, again, I think more information on that to come. But a lot of people definitely ask that question of what's going on? That was really sudden. And people have been around for 12 years or so.
Yeah, it's puzzling because it's a little sudden, and there's no talk about who's replacing them. Usually, you hear about, and they'll be succeeded by this guy and this person. You know, there's none of that. It was just they're gone. So
do you think they did something? They got caught with their hand in the cookie jar or something? Or
I don't know. I mean, it smacks from what we're hearing right now. It smacks of something that was something really major happened, because usually we're talking people that, like you said, had been with the company for 12 years or something, big names. You always want to have good PR and say, they're stepping down and this is that, and he's gonna mentor his replacement and this and this and that. None of that. So it's really weird, and it looks like the stock market agrees, because they took a hit, and apparently this is the biggest decline in I think they said 6 years. That's big. That's pretty big. So other people agree. I guess it's reading the same way to everybody else. That's the trouble.
But my assumption is Vince knew something like that would happen. The shareholders probably knew something like that was going to happen. Yeah. So they probably expected to take the hit. Again, we'll see how that kind of unravels. But yeah, that actually does impact quite a bit. We think about WBE, and I've mentioned this before. WB is the flag bearer for wrestling.
Yeah.
And
the ripples it creates.
Right. WrestleMania, like I mentioned before, everyone tunes in for WrestleMania that night. Everyone does. That's the thing about it, is WrestleMania does move the industry forward. Yeah. It's because of that interest at such a high level that people do enjoy it at, I don't want to say lower levels, but throughout all levels of wrestling.
It's true.
And that's the thing. It's it's and we've mentioned this before, every wrestling fan brings something to the table. And I think that's great. And because I think that there's people that are wrestling fans just to watch the entrances. Mm-hmm. There are people that just remember the old time wrestling. Yeah. There's people that like the 205 style. There's people that like British Strong style. There's people that as far as you watch it, maybe more New Japan pro wrestling style. There's tons of wrestling out there, and I think every wrestling fan does bring something to the table. Yeah. Again, to give that credit. That said, WWE is the flag bearer, and it moves the industry forward. And there's a lot of things happening at the top, and that's a huge situation. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this. But I like to think that pro wrestling, with or without WWE, would keep going. And that's a weird. That'd be a weird world, right? Without WWE wrestling.
That's an interesting thought. Yeah. I mean, you could say that WWE, built a foundation, but is it still necessary today? Because, I don't know.
It is and it isn't. It is and it isn't. I think that wrestling would still go on, but to have something that's pushing the machine, like the mass machine marketing that WWE is, it keeps wrestling, as far as, it keeps wrestling relevant, essentially.
I feel it keeps it relevant also, when you just look at it from a historical standpoint. And now, I realize WWE does a lot of revisionist history, but in terms of just housing old back catalogs from defunct leagues. I mean, if you go dig into the depths of what I call the depths of the WWE network, where you find Smoky Mountain Wrestling and
hidden gems and all that,
and really obscure stuff. WWE's really got their thumb on that, and in a good way. They're almost like the Smithsonian of wrestling, because they just own so much now. I couldn't imagine WWE going away and losing access to all that for fans. They need to exist in some way, way, even if it's not to create a current product. They just need to somehow exist to just like to be that flag, the torchbearer, I'd even say. So yeah, that'd be an interesting topic of another podcast to do.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, no, it would be great. Yeah. But no, as always, WrestleMania is a great time of the season, and it's something that I think that anytime you watch WrestleMania, there's something for everyone. It is like the Super Bowl, the Oscars, all rolled into one. But nonetheless, it's always fun to kind of see that revolution, so to speak, of wrestling. Yeah. But other than that, Chris Jericho, his son, made the wrestling team. And that's something, and I didn't know this. We were talking pre-show about this. Apparently, Jericho didn't make the wrestling team in high school.
Something he was never able to do. His son, Ash, was able to do it. And you see on Twitter the photo with his proud papa. Good for him. Good for you, Ash.
That's awesome. I used to, so back in high school, I would be playing basketball, and we would train like right next door to the wrestlers. And the entire time I'm like playing basketball, I'm like, man, I'm glad I'm not a wrestler. I mean, their workouts were more just intense, as far as everything from stairs, running up and down stairs 4 billion times, as far as just just making weight and all that. I was just like, oh my gosh, I had this instant respect for the wrestlers, and I'm like, I'm glad I'm getting kind of dunked on here in basketball. I was part of the C team in basketball.
Okay.
And that's just what you thought. A, B, C. I was a C team, but
okay.
Hey, out of a 9-game series, I started 2 of them.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So I'm not a full civilian. All right, so part of some C team in high school. Anyway, anything else you got for us, man?
We don't want to talk about CM Punk, right?
Yes. All right, so he's got a movie on Netflix or something?
The Girl on the Third Floor.
Okay, cool. All right, and that's like February 22nd.
February 22nd.
Okay, cool. Good stuff, CM. All right, well, anything else, man?
No. Tell your friends to subscribe.
Yeah, dude. Hit us up. Hotbox, Josh, talkwrestling, gmail.com. Be cool with each other and love each other, and we'll talk to y'all soon.